Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to be talking about how do you actually revise at pharmacy school and how does it compare to A-levels. So the first point I want to address today is actually the course volume. So in A-level you're going from a really finite syllabus, like a specification, around 6 modules at a time, whereas in pharmacy school you're doing 5 modules. Well, in my uni we do 5 modules. It can differ across many different unis. I know some unis do some modules in the first semester and some unis do some modules in the second semester. So I do recommend you actually reading about the pharmacy school that you're going to and just noting down like what topics you do. So if you're a pharmacy student, you already know that. So how do you actually address the volume? So in uni, it's a massive content overload. Like, I think this is what is the most tricky about pharmacy school, because this sheer load of what they expect you to do is what is tricky. Like, you've got like multiple modules, and then you've also got that one module with like all the reflections with the IP course and everything. And I honestly felt like I was drowning. So it obviously comes to the point where, because you've got so much, it's not just about memorizing like the way that it is in A levels, where a lot of the time you're just memorizing and it's got a lot of recall questions and things like that. And you can't necessarily do that in pharmacy school, you have to apply it. So, the way that I actually learn in pharmacy school to minimize and know where I'm actually going to revise and what I'm going to actually take note of is the learning outcomes. So, depending on your uni, each module should have a learning outcome list. A lot of the time, they're very vague, they're very broad, and they're just like expectations, academic expectations. As they are academic expectations, you then will find out segregated learning outcomes on your lecturer's slides. So it will say like the slide, and then it will come up with a list of learning outcomes specific to that lecture. So when you're actually learning and revising at uni, what I do is I go to the lecture, try and absorb as much information as I can. A lot of the time, depending on the lecturer that you have, I know some people say they read off the slides, some do, some actually add a bit more information. So I will obviously note that down. And when I've got kind of like a cohesive idea about what we're learning with the slides and then the added information from my lecturer, I'll go home and then basically try and answer those learning outcomes to the best of my ability. When you've got those learning outcomes, that's what you make your revision material on, and that's how you break down all the content. So you're not just learning the whole lecture side, you're actually learning specific to each learning outcome, because that's what the lecturer is going to be using to write your exams basically. So now we've deciphered actually what do they examine us on, which is the learning outcomes. It brings me on to the next point, the depth of understanding. So in A level, your understanding level is about recall, definitions, and then obviously you have those nasty application questions. In uni, it's primarily like application questions and reasoning a lot of the time, because in pharmacy you've got those patient scenarios where you're having to apply the knowledge and then get an answer from it. So it's a lot of questions like that that you need to be prepared for. To get good at this, and you really need to understand that basic recall content first. So I what I would basically do is I would get the learning outcomes, answer them with a combination of resources that we just discussed, the lecture slides, the actual lecturer's voice, combining it with other materials. So you've got a really structured answer to that learning outcome. And then I would basically make content-based questions. So I used to make like write a question, all the learning outcomes, and every single answer on a piece of paper, like on a page. So it was just condensed information. So I used to call them condensed content notes. So I don't know if you guys have, I also sell my notes, and I don't know if you guys, some of you may have bought my notes before, but they're just condensed learning outcomes and all the information. It's very condensed. After that, with that condensed content page list that I make, then I will make flashcards off that. So a lot of the time for exams, I'll just learn the content list, but then when you have time, you just copy and paste because you're doing all the work into Anki. But it's not just that massive paragraph that you've done to basically bind all your resources. It's just a minimalized, even more condensed version to the answer that you put in Anki. So my favorite word for revision is just condense, 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 and then put as many prompts in as you can. So I get prompted by certain words and it will trigger me to remember certain things. And that's how I kind of condense that big content out of the way and it gets in my head basically. And then when you've got a lot of application questions, a lot of the time you're going to have to, I create scenarios that are based on those learning outcomes. So, for example, if we had a responding to symptoms lecture on like constipation, then I will look at the red flags, for example, look at all of these things and try and make a scenario that is quite difficult that I could be able to answer with the level of understanding that I've picked up from the slides. So it's just about practicing case-based scenarios and questions, not just definitions and not just those learning outcomes, but just practicing to like understand that. We're quite like good in this day and age about how we have a chat GPT. So like use your chat GPT. Like I would make all my content questions as well, shove it in chat GPT and say, okay, make me practice based scenario questions as well. And then that will also help me understand it. And chat GPT is so good, it will just explain to you why. So that's how I use like AI and chat GPT as well to enhance my learning. Third point, I'm looking down because my notes are here, is independence. Now, in A level, you are basically spoon fed. Your teachers, you've got your teachers, you've got revision packs. When I tutor my A level students as well, they have like a test every week. So you don't have that in uni. It's very like very self-directed. No one checks if you revise. No one really cares what you do with your time. It's how you make of it and how you got there. They just care about your end result, which is quite brutal that you're going from a really like supported environment, but it's just the fact of adult learning, isn't it? So the way that I overcome this so I didn't basically fall behind, because when you move to uni you're like, yeah, I haven't got a test for ages, like I'm not going to revise. You have to anticipate it because it all comes rushing down. Like in my uni it's like December and January is just intense and then it's May. So you think, oh, I'm going to leave it the month before. You've got so many other things like placements going on, you're not going to have a chance to. So what I do is I have to build a plan. I will do things on the day because with me I forget. So if I have a lecture, I will either make the notes, the condensed notes in the lecture, or if it's really hard, I will just sit there and listen to the lecture. But those condensed notes have to be done for that lecture on the day or the day after. Or and the consequence for me is I have to stay up late to do it. And I know like we shouldn't think about punishment, but I'm being as realistic as I can. I literally have to say to myself, if I want to go out and if I want to sleep early, then the work needs to be done. And then you have me staying up like once or twice a week up till 2 in the morning trying to catch up, because in pharmacy you come to the point where you're in 9 to 6, you have like 5 lectures a day, and you'll, if you don't do it on the day or the day after, you will drown. And then with independence as well, make use of your study time. When it comes to like having free time, I go straight in the library and I don't really like to speak to anyone. I'm quite sociable in lessons, but like when I have that free break, it's like I like to use that time so I can relax when I get home. If I don't use that time, then I have to use my home time, and I don't like that. I know that some of my friends are the opposite. They literally will do everything at home. I know some of my friends, like they're commuters, so like when they get home they want to sleep and relax, so they just do everything. But I would always say like at least once or twice a week I'll have that sociable free period with my friends, but a lot of the time I just go silent study, and that's really normal as well. Like I know in A level it's very sociable and things like that, but it's normal for, don't take it to heart if you don't see your friends all the time. It's because you're just trying to get everything crammed in, and that's just the best way. Then you got to build your own plan. So I also try and like do my notes and then also revise for other topics that I know that are going to come up eventually. So once I prioritize my lecture notes and get that other way because they're just so annoying, I hate them. And then I'll pick like a module that I literally didn't like or I felt really crap about, and then I'll practice that. Earlier in the year, it's just gonna be me trying to absorb the learning outcomes, making those flashcards and making those condensed notes, and then I try and do that before the holidays, because in the holidays I will do a blitz revision session where it's just flashcards, and I'll blitz through everything that I learned the previous semester. So then I have that time. Then I know some people do it the other way around, where they do all the revisions resources in the holiday period. But I just feel like, for me, I know in the holiday period I've got no lectures and I can just focus on just blitzing out everything and recapping, and that's what I do personally to stay on top and try and remember things constantly. My uni is quite all right as well, where you have lectures and then you have a seminar or a workshop based on that lecture, so you kind of forced to remember things constantly as well. But that's kind of like how I guide and structure my way so I don't fall behind, and just make a good timetable. I'm a micromanager. You should see like my timetable. It's like dinner, travel. I even like book in when I commute back from uni, because I know that it's just not going to work if I say uni and then straight 2 o'clock I'm going to do this. I literally put travel, gym, this and that. I'm a micromanager because that's the only way I'll get anything done, because I very structured and I'm a bit weird about things like that. Now, the fourth point is about assessment style. So, the assessment style in uni completely changes. So, in A level, you have the A level exams, and then also your mid mock module tests that you have from your teachers, which don't really mean anything towards your grade. But in pharmacy school or any uni, it changes completely. So, you have MCQs tests, you have SAQs, which is short answer questions as well. You have SBAs, which is single best answer questions. You have essays, OSCEs, and calculations. So when I use when I used to do, like, before Chat GPT, it wasn't very big in first year. I think in second year it come in for me. I used to write my own questions that I do, but then if I have like an MCQ test, I'll put all the I will learn all the content, and then ChatGPT will make me practice questions. Another good app that I use is something called Notability. It has an AI feature, and I know people use Good Notes on their iPad and then make notes on Good Notes on the slides. I use Notability. I don't know if it's Notability or Notability. Yeah, it's Notability, and I'll put like the app icon down here so you get the right one. Um, I use that because if you put your slides in, it will read your slides with its AI feature, and then it will make like flashcard decks for you and MCQ tests. They only do like 10 questions, but it's better than nothing. And it's also based on your teacher's lectures as well. So it's just added questions that you can do on MCQs, because I hate MCQs. Um, and also to revise for specific tests as well, your workshops as well provide a lot of questions, your seminars as well. Really go off your university specific work, because that's your lecturers write your exams. It's not like an exam board, it's your lecturers that do it. And then I'll make a separate video on how I revise for calculations and OSCEs as well. But that's kind of like a general overview. In terms of exam past papers, some unis give them and some unis don't. Our uni will give us the exam papers, but you can't have the answers to them. So you're just practicing exam questions, but you don't know the answers to them. But it's just an ideology of what type of questions you could get asked. Sometimes the lecturers will go through the exam questions that they've done in previous years with you. Um, and then some unis just give the exam papers and mark schemes, but you have to ask your lecturers about that. Um, and so in uni, it's a combination of looking what at past exam questions, looking at in some slides as well. Lecturers will put like questions at the end that you have to answer. Our uni uses Mentimeter, so we used to just take pictures of all the Mentimeters as well. So and they they have questions in a range of formats. It's just being able to note them down and then saving them for exam time as well. And then you can use ChatGPT to help you as well. This brings me on to resources. So, with pharmacy schools specifically, there's a lot of resources that are kind of hybridized. So in A level, you can just choose, you can just trust the textbook because that is everything that they're going to teach you. Whereas with uni, like with uni, you have to basically make hybrid notes. So what I mean by hybrid notes, I don't know if you've seen on my Etsy as well, I have clinical notes. So those clinical notes are a combination of what I learned at uni, my condensed notes. It's also been clinically, they've been checked alongside the NICE guidelines as well as the BNF as well, because you have to also acknowledge. I remember our uni taught us asthma, and then the guidelines changed, so you always have to check yourself. They sometimes your uni is quite nice and they redo the asthma, like when a new guidelines change, they'll redo the lecture, but or they'll give you a heads up, but then it's your own due diligence to go and check the NICE guidelines and BNF to see what has changed. So I know, for example, the diabetes ones changed recently, and also I don't know if it's heart failure or AF, but one of the two has changed, which I need to go and check. So you just have to constantly update your notes, and also that means as well double check what your lecturer is doing as well, because it could be outdated. Like those asthma lectures, I had to change my whole asthma notes to like accommodate for like the NICE guideline change. So when I do my notes and everything for you guys, I try and check multiple platforms at the same time, instead of, there's no like form, like no textbook really, but you, it's your duty to make those hybridized notes, which I said about the condensed notes. You get the learning outcome, then you get all these resources from the BNF NICE guidelines, make that thick paragraph that's got everything you need, and then you condense it and learn it and condense it. Okay, and then point six, I actually want to talk about study methods. Personally, I'm really big on active recall, flashcards. I don't, is it blurting? I think Revishan said blurting, but I just call it look, cover, write, check. So you look at the question, you write as much as you know, and then in a different color, I go back in, and I do a lot of that. I know a lot of people do mind maps. Cool, you, it's up to you. But my point is, with the whole revision study technique, is you need to find out what works for you as soon as possible, because you don't have time to waste and experiment. I did experiment for one exam and it turned out very brutally. I tried to use like osmosis to really try and understand the background when in the exam, and then it was just like pictures from the lecture sides, and I was like, I haven't really looked at the lecture sides. I just tried to learn the foundation like a normal person. If I just revised the lecture sides, I would have got a higher grade. But like things like that, I think it's important to understand the basis of it, but you just really need to ask your lecturers what's going on and get an understanding of it. So you definitely need to do active recall, because I don't understand how you'd be doing anything else, and exam practice. So we talked about like your uni having exam questions, using ChatGPT to increase your exam question bank, and then also group practice. Now, with group practice, I'm not very good with group practice. I just get distracted. So what I do is for OSCEs, if I want to do an OSCE practice, I get a family member. I use OSCE Toolbox. It has scenarios and mark schemes, and the mark schemes are really thorough, where you can actually just get someone who has no clue about pharmacy to do it, and they'll be okay. You have to explain it to them, but like it's not, it's a bit easier because it's just a checklist. And then for calculations, I do myself. It truly depends on your site, on your style, but the whole point of this part is just you need to know it fast because you haven't got time to waste. And my last point is motivation and balance. I always get burnt out every year. It's just a matter of fact. And then I get to the point where I actually miss doing work. I think I burnt out around like June last year, and I started wanting to go back to uni last week. So it come back in like a nice time where like where I actually was starting uni and I needed to start learning. But the way to not like burn out is you need to have breaks and do things that you want to do. I try and incorporate as much revision as I can into everyday life to make me not like want to like, it will just drive me nuts. So for example, I get a job in a pharmacy, because if you're going into a pharmacy, you're picking up a lot of a lot of your responding to symptoms there, a lot of your law and ethics, a lot of your dispensing there. You can have conversations with pharmacists, learn a bit more, have a look at guidelines, how they deal with pharmacy fair services and things like that. That is a big deal. So I always recommend working in a pharmacy. So I'm working and also learning at the same time. I do a lot of social media, as you guys know, and when I do my posts, I have to fact check a lot of things. So I learned that way. With chemistry and biology and revisiting chemistry, I feel like I could probably do, even though I'm in third year and haven't done chemistry for a while, because I teach so much. I teach pharmacy students so much of the old content, so it helps me remember it. So I'm revising that way, so teaching people and revising that way, and I'm incorporating it so much so if I haven't done enough that day, I don't feel as guilty because I've actually revisited a topic that I was going to do anyway. um and then I try and learn in fun ways. Like, for example, I make clinical notes. And when I was doing clinical notes and revising for my clinical exam last year, I was also making stuff on my Etsy and like my social media and things like that. And that's things that I enjoy doing. So you need to find your motivations is like social media and things like that and making notes, and that's what I enjoy, and I try and incorporate pharmacy as much as I can into that and revision, so I don't feel as guilty because I'm learning and doing what I like at the same time. But you need to associate, you need to actually force yourself to like studying. It's something my sister's told me. She's like, you need to force yourself to like it. And I what I would do is I would associate studying with something that I liked. It sounds like proper like psychological torture, but I don't do it anymore. I just did it for a while and then I forced it just, I ran out of the habit. So for example, I would only listen to music if I was revising. So then if I wanted to listen to music, I'd revise, or I'd associate like having a sweet treat with revision. So things like that, or um if I revise, I'll reward myself afterwards. Like I can watch episode of something and have a break. I had to really put myself into the Pomodoro technique to the point where I don't even time myself anymore. Like I'm so used to like 30 minutes in a break. I don't even need that timer there. So that's a good thing. You need to do it little and often. Do not cram, because every pharmacy student says do not cram and then crams. I've crammed. It's just, it's brutal. So just try and do as much as you can, little and often. And then finally, I want to address the whole iPad laptop situation and why do you actually need to revise with the iPad and a laptop? So personally, I'll give my verdict off the bat. You need a laptop. It's a must. You need a laptop because you have to submit quizzes, you have to submit essays and things like that. Things that are so structured that you need a laptop for. So that's my must. An iPad is a bit debatable. I got a secondhand iPad. It was my sister's at med school and she gave it to me because she finished med school. And I've used that since. It's come to the point where I either use my iPad a lot or it's just been dead. It's been dead for weeks and I just go through phases of using it. Some people really like it and people don't. Some people like it because it's convenient to carry and it's not heavy, whereas I just like taking my laptop everywhere because I don't know when I can revise and things like that. And I just like my laptop more. So it's preference. The reason why in pharmacy school that you may need an iPad is because of it's a lot of drawing, especially in chemistry, a lot of annotation, and you need like the colors and things like that to remember things. So I did that a lot in first year um and second year, where there was a lot of chemistry and drawing involved. The reason why people whip them out during note taking and lecturing is because, for example, if your lecture says this specific diagram and adds information about it, then you'll label it. And then other than that, I don't think I used it. I used it other than that, I don't think I used it for any other reason. I think I used it as like a second screen, like with my notes on one screen, I always make my condensed notes on another screen. And then when people say, "What are you actually noting down in your lectures?" Your base, I'm just condensing what the teacher's saying. I'm just getting all the key ideas and notes. Everything I always think about it like a textbook. You go and look at a piece of text and you're highlighting the key information. You're doing that visually when the lecturer is speaking, and that's what I'm writing down and trying to condense and save a lot more time in the lessons. But you need to just decipher. If it's a hard lecture, just listen because you absorb better and make notes. If it's an easy one, then just try and do as much as you can in the lecture and you should be okay. So that's it. That's how I revise. I think it's very general tips, but it's just making sure you're looking at the learning outcomes, condensing your notes, condensing further into flashcards, and then just exam practice as much as you can. People say that they can don't make your own notes. It's up to you. I think a lot of the time, if you know someone in the year above that has the notes and then you can just convert it into Anki or something, then that's easier, then that's great for you. Some people learn why they make the notes. Um, it's up to your preference. And that's why I have clinical notes there that some of my students will buy and then they'll just put it in and then they'll learn it themselves. So it's up to you. It's just the way that you do it. That's how I revise for uni and do all right. Okay, well, thank you for listening in and watching my YouTube video. Comment below any weird, fun, wonderful ways that you remember and revise. I'm quite okay, like, I don't cram and do like the whole like 24-hour stuff. I'm quite chill. But if you guys have any tips or anything, just comment below and let me know. Yeah, bye.